Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm your host, Steve Carroll. It's time to do a season preview, I think, with the big kick-off, certainly in the league anyway, only been a few days away. And I'm delighted to say that after a little sabbatical, Rhys Hughes has joined us again to discuss all things Swansea City. So afternoon, Rhys, and as ever, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me.
Afternoon, not so busy schedule. I'm on a school holidays, so not so busy schedule. So I'm pleased to talk football.
Yeah, well, look, we can't all be, have this time off in the sun, can we? But look, enjoy it. I think we're all just jealous, really, aren't we? But quite a bit has happened since we last recorded. I think we did. I was lucky enough to be joined by Stuart James for a brief one about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. But as ever, particularly with the World Cup having ended now, things have started to move a bit quickly. But yeah, first of all, we're going to talk about a few departures, and the first one is Liam Cullen, who's left for Russell Martin's Leicester. I was quite surprised, really, by this. I mean, it seemed to go quite quickly as well, didn't it? But look, I think from my point of view, it's probably a good move for everybody because, much as I like Cullen, I think he's somebody who's good to bring on when we're chasing a goal. But given the signings that we've made over the summer, I think he really would have struggled for game time. And he'll go there now. We'll take some money, and I think he'll probably be a key player for Leicester, which will suit him better as well. So, what do you think about that, Rhys?
Yeah, I agree with what you say, and it probably is in his best interest. I think speaking down the ground on Saturday, someone was saying it's kind of make or break point for his career. Really, he needed a move to kind of kick on, and so for him, it's probably a good move for him. I actually think it leaves us a little bit light. I'll be honest. I still suspect that Potnik will probably leave at some point in this window. And so that leaves us Adam Ida, who hasn't been firing on all cylinders up front, and injury-prone Ross Stewart. So I would have liked to have kept him. I'm not going to hide that, and I actually think Cullen has had kind of a fair bit of pelters from our fan base that is largely unwarranted. I think he's a local boy that you always knew he was going to give 100%, and what he lacked in quality kind of made up for in heart. And I do think there's space for him in that squad. With that being said, obviously, I think we've cashed in on him, and if that money now gets reinvested, then full power to our elbow. But it's one that I think probably suits him, as you say, but I think it leaves us a little bit light.
Yeah, I mean, it may do. I mean, there's still time in the window, isn't there? I mean, my understanding was actually that Ross Stewart, who we'll come on to talk about in a bit, is that he was like he's a replacement for Cullen. So that would suggest to me that if Potnik was to go, another thing we'll come on to discuss, then maybe somebody else would come in there as well. So hopefully that is the case. But, I mean, Cullen does leave us with some good memories, doesn't he? I mean, there were 3 goals in South Wales derbies, which, that's living the dream for all us. I mean, I think it's about 200 odd appearances. I think, as you say, from my point of view, there was a place for him, but it needed to. He's not a holding midfield player, for example, which he's been deployed in, and I think he was only ever really going to be an impact sub when chasing a goal, from my point of view. But yeah, he's made a contribution, doesn't he? I mean, let's be honest, as Swans fans, we'd give anything to have done what he's achieved at the club, wouldn't we?
Absolutely, yeah. I agree with what you say, and you probably would have been a squad player for us this year. But I just think we've got to make places for people like Liam Cullen. He knows the club, he gets the club, and we've kind of lost that local impetus now, in and around the dressing room, which I think is really important in any football club. If you're trying to instill an identity with the club's history. So we've cashed in, and great. Then if we reinvest, if Potnik goes as you seem to suggest, then great. But I'm a little bit disappointed that he's one that's departed this summer.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I was a bit surprised, particularly at the speed of what happened. Really, it wasn't really linked with many moves, and then all of a sudden, there's Leicester have come in, and within a couple of days, he's gone. But we wish him well. I'm sure he'll do well there, and he'll get more game time, which ultimately is the main aim. But he's not the only one. I mean, there's been a bit of a theme, really, isn't there? I mean, we seem to have a few homegrown players have moved on recently. We probably won't go into a huge amount of detail on a lot of them because a lot of them probably weren't going to play. But I mean, Ollie Cooper has gone to Notts County. He's out of contract at the end of the season. So even though it's a loan, effectively that's him done. I think from the point of view of him, I would say that the signings we've made in recent years have sort of pushed him out of contention, really. I mean, he's a bit unlucky because of an injury that he had, and he never really got back in there once Luke Williams had left and Alan Sheehan had taken his place. But then you look at Cameron Congreve, who'd gone up to Scotland last year and done quite well. I thought he might have a chance this year of being a sub, because I mean he's better than a certain Brazilian, but we've cashed in there. We wish him well. He's gone to Belgium, the same as Carell Wilson, who probably wasn't going to get much of a chance. I think the one who might, whose loan might lead to something more for us is Sam Parker, really, because he's gone to Wickham in League One, and I think he really needs to play. But I think if he goes there and does well, there must be a reasonable chance that he might come back next year then and play. But what's your thoughts on a few of those deals there, Rhys? I mean, like I said, not all of them were expected, really, were they?
No, I agree. In terms of like Cameron Congreve, he did show glimmers, didn't he, at stages in his time here, but he's never really fully impressed me. And although there's a footballer there, I've found him as frustrating as the flair that he gives, really. So I think a move is probably in his best interest. Likewise with Wilson. The one that surprised me really was Parker. He did very well last year during his moments on the field. He played right back, didn't he? Played some moments at right wing. And I do think there's a space for Parker in the squad. Again, that seems to be a movement out that actually weakens us rather than strengthens us. I accept what you're saying, that he probably needs to play more football, and he will get that on his loan. But of course, our priority is winning football matches at Swans and at Swansea City, and I think that probably weakens us. I think there's definitely a space for a Parker in that 11 if you're 1-0 down, or at right back. I think we'll probably speak about the Birmingham game later, but I actually think he could have given us something this year.
Yeah, I think that as well. But I mean, the impression I've got is that maybe we would like Josh Key to move on if there was an offer in. And if that's not going to happen, what they've decided to do is then loan out Parker, and then Key will remain as part of the squad, and he may leave next summer, and then Parker will come back having played far more football, which, I think in that sense, I do agree with it. I think from my point of view, Parker should really have gone out on loan before. I mean, I feel like he's, I don't know why he didn't last year, for example. That would have made sense because he really didn't get a lot of action. And for me, he probably should have had more action in the second half of last season rather than maybe us signing Joel Ward. But I'm optimistic about Parker if he can actually stay injury-free. And he does play a lot of games at League One level. I think long-term, that could be what we need. I mean, you look at Philip Lisser, for example, last year. And obviously, we mentioned Congreve. They've had good loan spells and it's stood them in good stead. So that's what we have to hope for, isn't it? But I do know what you're saying as well about, look, could he play a part? Yes. But is it better from a long-term point of view for him to play 35, 40 games at a lower level rather than be on our bench and maybe play, I don't know, single-figure starts? I mean, that's how I would look at it, really.
Yeah, I'd accept that. I'd accept that. I don't see Philip Lisser as playing as right back. I'd like to see him play in centre half. And so then I would say, well, we're actually quite light at right back, So we have then only got Josh Key at right back. Philip Lisser probably will play at centre half now Burgess is gone, or looks to have a relatively long spell on the sideline. And so I actually think at right back we're shorter than what perhaps we appear to be, So I think he probably would have played more than, or started more games than kind of single digits. I think he probably would have started considerably more than that, to be honest. But based on what he performed like at the end of last season, but obviously he's gone now, and as you say, he's going to get plenty of game time, and hopefully he comes back an even better player than what we saw of him last year.
Yeah, that's what we have to hope for, I think, and I'm optimistic that will be the case. I mean, playing a proper season of football is bound to help, isn't it? So fingers crossed that is the case. The other bit of big news really is the one signing that we have made, or two actually. We brought in the left back as well, haven't we? Thiago Parente from from Benfica, isn't it, on loan? So I mean, he's not going to play a great deal, is he? But again, last year I think Josh Tyman was probably running to the ground a lot, wasn't he? So. Yeah. It was important that we brought somebody in, even if they're not going to play a huge amount. And that's what we've done, isn't it? I mean, he's not going to see a huge amount of game time, but it's good to know that there is a backup there, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, without question. You've got to have cover, haven't you? And competition for places can never be a bad thing, can it?
No, certainly not. So hopefully he can push him a bit, but I think it's fairly obvious that Timon is going to, he'll continue as first choice as he should really after, a very good season last year. The only player that in the team that could cross a ball. I'm hoping that's not going to be the case this year as well, but we will see. But yes, the big signing really is Ross Stewart, isn't it? I mean, I didn't see this coming, if I'm honest. There's no doubt in his ability, his pedigree. Been a very successful player for Sunderland and obviously for Southampton in recent years as well. When fit, has been a real asset and is a goal scorer. I think the when fit bit is the issue, though, isn't it? I mean, this to me feels like a bit of a gamble. There's no questioning that he can deliver for us, but how many games is he going to be able to play? I think that's what the concern is, isn't it? What do you think of this deal? It doesn't feel like a very Swansea City move, this, does it?
Not remotely. I'm actually quite excited by it. We're signing a proven goal scorer at this level and above this level. And so, yeah, absolutely great. He's free. He hasn't cost us much money. He probably is on a ton of wages. I think we've got to be realistic about what these deals often mean. And as you say, he comes with an injury record. So we've just got to keep our fingers crossed. As you say, they've rolled the dice here on Stewart, and we've just got to keep everything crossed that we don't catch a cold with it. But we are signing a proven Championship goal scorer, and it's something that we've been screaming out for of me for a long time. And so, yeah, let's see how he does. This, to me, obviously does point towards Vopotnik going. I think we've already spoken about that. And so he's got to kind of plug the gap of the 20 plus goals that Vopotnik scored for us last year.
Yeah, that is the case, isn't it? I mean, we'll come on to Vopotnik now. I mean, obviously Hull have put a bid in for him. We don't know the type of numbers mentioned. It was rejected, which isn't a shock because the first offer often is rejected, isn't it? I mean, you'd think they'd be back, wouldn't you? I mean, there doesn't seem to have been a huge amount of interest elsewhere at the moment. But I mean, we're now on the 11th of August. There's still about 3 weeks until the window shuts. I mean, you'd have to fancy that in the end he probably will end up going, won't he? But I'm within reason. I'm okay about that as long as the money is good, and then it allows us to balance the books a little bit and replace him. Then it's hard to be too critical, isn't it? Because that's the way that we have to run our football club these days. And the truth is, as well as
the fee will be determinant, isn't it? The fee will be determinant as to how fans respond to it. If the fee is 20 million, which I think that would be a fair and reasonable price for Vopotnik. If it is 20 million, I think we wave him on our way and we wish him the very best. He's not going to be one of these, I hope, that we boo when we go to other grounds wherever he ends up. He's given his heart and soul, I think, to Swansea City. Even when he came on, he ran his legs off in that Carabao Cup game on Saturday. I think if he was to go, we wish him well. But in terms of like fan reaction to him going, I think a lot of it will be determinant on the fee that we end up getting for him.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're going to get 20 million if I'm honest. That's what I would like. I think it could be closer to 15, but it depends. We may have a thing now with Jamestown, obviously looking at various targets and thinking, well, if we'd let him go a bit earlier for a bit less, more players might be available to replace. It's that balance, isn't it? Maybe you look at Isak at Liverpool last year. He did go in the end, but then for Newcastle, nearly all their replacements had already gone elsewhere. You'd probably say in the end, nobody benefited from that deal at that stage. It can be a tricky one. Obviously, I don't know what the club's thoughts are on it at this stage in terms of what they would sell for. But I mean, I did ask it at the fans forum, and they've said there is a plan for if it reaches a certain bid and if they decide to let him go, which is all you can ask for, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And until someone gives that magic figure that the Swans are prepared to accept, it's all kind of ifs, buts, and maybes, isn't it? So it's we're just gonna have to watch this space.
Yeah, as you say, it's just pure speculation, isn't it? And I mean, from my point of view, selling probably wouldn't be the end of the world. I do wonder if he could hit the same numbers again. I mean, you never know for certain, do you? But But then it's difficult, isn't it? I had a conversation with someone the other day where I said, with hindsight years ago, it would have been a very good move to have cashed in on Michu after a year. But imagine they hadn't
Yeah,
done that. We'd have obviously all gone berserk, wouldn't we? But
yeah.
with
So,
hindsight, given what happened, it would have been an inspired move. It just shows you the confidence of hindsight is a funny thing, isn't it? And you never really know for certain. It's only afterwards that you'll know if you've done good business or not. But
yeah.
look, time will tell. I mean, the smart money is that he will probably go, and if he does, he'll go with our best wishes, as you say, because he without him, I dread to think where he would have been last year. But
Well,
what else do you think we need before the window shuts? I mean, we've talked about. Well, you've touched on obviously Cameron Burgess. Sounds like he's got a serious injury. We wish him well. I mean, that does leave us light at centre back from my point of view. I mean, centre midfield feels like a big problem. I think Galbraith hasn't been replaced. We really need somebody in there before Saturday, I would say. That concerns me. Might need two in total. I don't know, but wouldn't need two before Saturday, but two overall before the window shuts. And then obviously if Apotnik goes, I think we need a replacement for him as well. So, I mean, what do you think? How important do you think certain positions are to strengthen? And are there any others that we need? I mean, obviously you mentioned right back as well, didn't you? So maybe you want someone to come in there.
I think, yeah, I think we're short on right back, but it will largely depend on whether Matos plans on where he plans on playing Lisa. But from my eyes, I see him as a centre half, and so I'd like to see him play alongside Cabango on Saturday, and have Josh Key at right back, and that then does mean that we are short at right back. I'd probably look to bring in a right back. I think you're right in terms of the Galbraith question mark, that we don't really have that type of midfielder in the midfield at the moment. So I'd like to see what a centre midfielder coming in, and probably another wide player. But I appreciate that we're probably flooded with wide players, but they're pretty mediocre. In Ronald, Yom, from what I saw of Yo on Saturday, they don't look. They're not players who are really going to make you competitive towards the playoff side of the championship. And so I'd quite like to see another wide player in as well. But I think probably the priority is a centre midfielder. That's got to be kind of front and centre of data analysis of Jamestown, as you mentioned, and then probably a right back and a wide player.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, hopefully then there's things going on behind the scenes. I mean, there really should be. I mean, but that midfield certainly feels like a priority, and probably centre half has become a bigger one now, given what we think has happened to Burgess. So yeah, still much.
Well, I mean, we have got Welsh though, haven't we?
We have, of course.
So if Matos is happy with Lisa playing centre half, then we have got we have got Welsh that can play there. And if the worst came to the worst, and you needed to, you need to bring someone on to play centre half, Fulton could do a short-term job at centre half, couldn't he?
Well, I suppose he could if he had to, but you wouldn't really want to do that, would you? It feels just now like we're short of bodies. Like I say, I think Lissa is seen as a right back. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But like you say, he may now have to go into centre back. But if that's the case, there's only really one spare right back or centre back, isn't there? So I think that's what the problem is with Burgess being out. So there just needs to be action now, doesn't there? Because of obviously these things happen. To be fair, you couldn't have expected a nasty injury like that, but. Yeah, they're going to have to pull their finger out a little bit, aren't they? I mean, do you think there's anyone that should move on? I mean, I'm going to amaze you now by saying that I think a man that wears number 35, I mean, his days really should be numbered. It's interesting he didn't come on as a sub the other day, which, last year he seemed to play every single game, even if he was only coming off the bench. But, I mean, Ronald's days seem numbered to me. I don't know if you think anybody else's are.
I mean, Ronald's agent is trying his very best to try and get him to move out of Swansea, because he seems to have been linked to just about every club imaginable over the summer, but nothing comes to fruition. Are there anyone else? I'm not sure whether I would be in a desperate rush to ship anyone out, if I'm honest, because as you say, I think we're relatively short on bodies. So in terms of, yes, I think Ronaldo probably needs to move on. I would have said Burgess, to be honest, obviously, but before his injury, but purely on the basis of The amount of wages that he's on, and he's really struggling for any kind of form. But obviously that's not going to happen now. But no, I can't say I'm in a massive rush to ship anyone else out. We're short on bodies, and the championship is a long season. Your squad needs to be deep, and that's probably the biggest question mark I've got ahead of us. Ahead of the season about us, is our squad doesn't look particularly deep at the moment.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We definitely do need that strengthening, don't we? As we've said in a couple of positions. So, hopefully things will move, and it'd be great to have particularly a central midfield player, I think, in before the weekend. But look, we will wait and see. I mean, last week there was a fans forum. I was in attendance. I don't think you were there, were you, Rhys? But did you follow it at all?
I was, and I was playing cricket, but I did catch up with it.
What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing all the right noises off the field, aren't we? I think the move with the Cat 1 status is a positive one. And it seems like we're all pushing in the right direction off the field, which is what we need. That is what's going to give us stability ultimately. And I think they're probably looking at the business that we've managed to do this summer, with kind of trying to, or not trying to, but kind of cashing in on our homegrown players and going, well, this Cat 1 status is probably a bit of a no-brainer, because it's a safety net to that, isn't it? And given the fact that we're not going to be able to compete financially with a lot of these clubs, Cat 1 status is going to be instrumental in developing those homegrown players that will fill the first team. So that was the bit that I found quite exciting. Don't know. Jury's out really on why we're purchasing the stadium. For me, I know you're a little bit more excited by the prospect than me, aren't you? I don't really see the benefit of it.
I can see I think in the short term it's not a bad idea, because if you're in control, you can do things like, as for example, now we decide to get a certain man called Snoop Dogg to play a couple of gigs. Potentially we can make money off that, whereas it wouldn't get split before. But I think the issue is maybe further down the line, if the club gets sold, then, you are in a position where if an unscrupulous owner comes in, then, things become a bit more uncertain. I mean, you think those days should be over now, based on it's so hard to buy a football club based on the fact that hardly anybody's got the finance to do so. But, yeah, I mean, look, it seems, like I said, I think in the short term it's not a bad thing, but whether it is on the long term, I don't know. I mean, it was quite interesting as well. They're going to buy the training ground. I mean, I didn't expect that either.
No, and again, it's great. In many ways, it shows ambition. It shows they want to kind of stay and invest in the facilities, and that's to be applauded. I'm just not sure whether it's what the benefit is, from a footballing perspective. When it comes to that stadium is getting relatively old now. It needs upkeep, and so with purchasing that as an asset, you obviously also get the maintenance issues that comes with having a stadium that's 25-year-old.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, they did explain one thing about I think it was LED lights. I think it was to do with, because they had to go through the council. Everything was far more complex. Whereas if they're in charge of things, they can get things done easier. So I suppose that is a positive. But look, I suppose time will tell about if it makes a real difference at this stage. But it's understandable that the council and the university are willing to do a deal, because everyone needs money these days. So I'm not at all surprised that once an opportunity was there, that they're interested in doing the business, really. But it certainly feels like there's a lot of commitment from the ownership, doesn't it? And they want to invest in the club, and look, that can only be a good thing, really. I mean, whether it pays off in terms of signings, I mean, that not every signing will come off, but either way, it's certainly better than what the previous regime is, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. And as I said, there seems to be really positive vibes coming from off the field now. They do all seem to be singing off the same hymn sheet, whereas under the previous regime, there seemed to be a lot of kind of convolution, and
it felt to me as if the club was on one side and then the ownership were just on the other, if you know what I mean. And it was the fact as well that the ownership were living in a different continent, never coming and visiting. But then you'd have the people here on the ground, and they were like being hamstrung, weren't they, by the ownership, wasn't it?
Exactly that, mate. Exactly that.
Very challenging. But those days seem to have gone now. So look, there's definite progress being made. We just have to hope that it translates to on the pitch, because it's been very mid-table-ish, hasn't it, for the last few years. I think we need a bit of excitement, particularly to try and get some fans back through the doors that we may have lost in recent years. But I mean, we played Leganes in a friendly the other day. I know you weren't there, Rhys. I was. Wasn't a classic, should we say, but we did win 1-0, which was good. But it did feel like your typical pre-season game, really, particularly in the second half once you made a lot of changes. But this is a collector's item now, because we're going to talk a little bit about Birmingham. And I don't have a huge amount to say because I actually couldn't go on Saturday. So, but I know you were there, Rhys. So I have watched the highlights. I can't contribute a lot else. I mean, there were chances on the looks of it. I mean, some reasonable chances for Eder and for Just. And obviously, Birmingham have scored a horrible, scrappy goal, and that was enough to win. I mean, it looked a bit disappointing, even if there were some positives.
Yeah, it almost felt like a glorified pre-season game, to be honest. We started the game very well, Stu. For 40 minutes, we were comfortably the better side. We looked penetrative. We played some really nice football, opened them up. And as you say, Ida had a chance. But dare I say it, for Potnick probably scores, and Ida probably should have. Elijah just curled one just around the post from inside the box. You know, if we'd taken the lead at that point, it would have been a very different game. But it did show the frailties of last season as well. You know, a long lumped ball forward by Birmingham. It wasn't dealt with. It was kind of car crash defending, really. And then we're behind. And in the second half, all Birmingham really tried to do is they sat in a low block and just lump balls forward. You know, from free kicks, you know, into the box. They offered nothing. So, unfortunately, it's a game that probably we didn't learn much from, you know, as a fan base in terms of where we're likely to be and where we're likely to compete in this year. But what it definitely showed is the same old frailties as we saw last year. One, in terms of breaking teams down, that kind of sit back and look to frustrate. We didn't seem to do that at all in the second half. And those defensive frailties, you know, from set pieces again.
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, isn't it? I mean, Birmingham seem to be a bit of a bogey team for us these days. Often they've had wins against us that are all draws. I mean, I think back to last year where that have been undeserved. And I mean, it feels like maybe it's happened a little bit again. But I mean, we have contributed as well to our own downfall, haven't we, by giving away a soft goal and then not taking our chances. I mean, I think the frustrating thing for me was it would have been good to have got through, because up until, you know, the FA Cup starts now, there isn't really an opportunity then for some of the squad players to get a game. And obviously in this instance as well, inevitably, with it being the week before the season starts, generally the squad players don't get a chance because you want to try and get your first team up to speed. So I think for maybe some of the squad players, it's a bit disappointing, isn't it? They won't get any minutes now.
Yeah, agree. And listen, I don't want to sound too negative on it. For 40 minutes, I thought we were excellent. And there were some players there that showed some real glimmers of promise. Apoku on the right wing looks really useful. He's the type of player who's going to get kind of bums off seats. He's relatively unorthodox, but he's quick. He's sharp. He finds pockets of space really nicely. I thought he was excellent. Philip Lisa at right back looked solid, if relatively unspectacular, but you know he's still learning his trade. And so yeah, there were glimmers there. There were glimmers of something that can be exciting. But we look just a little bit off it, to be honest. I'm not sure on our preseason kind of a preseason schedule for getting us up to shape for the season. You know, we played a couple of those games in the blistering heat in Austria. We seem to have played Exeter behind closed doors in a second division Spanish side. We just didn't really look sharp, you know, and it wasn't through a lack of effort. It was through kind of we didn't look like we had match sharpness on Saturday. So I'm hoping that after having a week on the training ground, that we're going to see a very different Swan side on Saturday, perhaps with the imagination of the first half against Birmingham rather than the last hour.
Yeah, certainly. Fingers crossed. I mean, so let's get to it then. Obviously, the opening day away from home again. as we always seem to be. I think the stat is something like 19 and 22 seasons, something like that. It's absolutely crazy. Not that it bothers me, because I actually don't mind being away on the opening day, because I think we take far more than we usually do to most places, and that is happening. We're taking a huge following to Stoke, which is a place where we usually only take about 500. So that is good from that point of view. Obviously, it's not a happy hunting ground for us, as we know. We don't tend to get results there, but we can get it out the way early on this time, at least. I mean, how would you set us up for this one? I mean, obviously, there's a few dilemmas now, aren't there, with injuries and whatnot, and the midfield situation where we've said we think somebody needs to come in. I mean, what would your 11 be if you were in charge on Saturday?
That's a good question. I mean, I think probably the big question is who takes Burgess's place at centre half. Whether it's Welsh, the new signing, or whether Lisa comes in. I'd quite like to see Lisa play centre half, and then probably Josh Key playing at right back. The midfield is a big headache at the moment. I'd like to see Stamenic start. I think we're going to have a big season from Stamenic. I think if he can make a position his own, I think we can expect big things from him, and he's still young. So I pick Stamenic. I pick a Poku out wide. The interesting thing will be up top whether it'll be Stewart or Ida. I suspect it will probably be Ida, given the fact that Stewart didn't play, given the fact he wasn't match fit against Birmingham. That is presuming, by the way, that Popotnik doesn't. There's another offer for Popotnik, and so I suspect he may not start on Saturday. And I got a real dilemma then as to who will play left wing and who will play in those two midfield positions. I suspect maybe Walter, maybe one of them, but he didn't feature against Birmingham. And then I'd probably pick Yom on that left wing rather than Yo. But yeah, it's a question mark on that midfield. Who would you start in there?
It's tough, isn't it? I'm really hoping someone comes in that can start, and even if they only play an hour or something, because it does concern me. I mean, it's going to be either Fulton or Waddell, I would think. I mean, Waddell isn't a midfield player for me. And if you go Fulton and Stammen, it's just quite negative. I mean, on an opening day up there, I sort of would understand it. But, I mean, we should be at the point now where Jay Fulton really isn't, starting games for us. I mean, but here we are again. We've got to, it's essential we bring somebody in. We don't want this going on, but it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, I think the other positions, I'm fairly sure Just will play as the 10, and then Yeo and Opoku will play out wide with Ida up front. I can't see any difference there. And as you say, the centre-back issue is the interesting one. My guess is that it will be Lissa, and the Key will play right back rather than Welsh coming in and Lissa playing right back. So,
you think Popotnik starts Saturday, do you?
No, I don't think he will. I'd be surprised. I mean, in fact, there could be another bid, which means they might leave him out altogether. Like, I could see him being on the bench and coming on. But, I mean, I don't know if Stewart will be on the bench, if I'm honest. I mean, they've said he hasn't had much of a pre-season, and he's not the type of player you can take a risk with. So, based on that, they will want Popotnik on the bench. So, yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound too harsh, really, on a judgment based on 70 minutes of football, but I'd quite like to see Yom start on the wide left rather than Yo. He doesn't look ready to me. He doesn't look match sharp to me. And so I think he's firmly going to be a work in progress. So we'll have to wait and see on him, I suspect. And so I would probably pick Yom in that wide area rather than Yo. But other than that, I think your team is pretty much nailed on, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think with some of the signings, we are going to have to be quite patient, aren't we? A few of them are young. I mean, both wide players are. I mean, I don't think they've been signed to necessarily make, a brilliant impact straight away. I think it's, it may be for, as the season progresses. So, I understand that. It does make sense, but obviously in the wide positions particularly, we've been desperate for upgrades, haven't we? Because, the last season particularly was extremely poor. But, we're just going to...
Opoku does look good.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I mean, that would make a difference. And I mean, but for me, we do have the other options of stuff like, can just move wide, so Valter can come in at 10. I mean, we shouldn't necessarily be against, the odd thing like that where we can, because that would help us get more goals into the team, I would think.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It's whether you want to start like that first game of the season, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
but yeah, I think that's the sort of pragmatic move you may see kind of in October and November. I'm not sure whether you'd want to start that way in the first game of the season.
Well, yeah, particularly away somewhere, and to someone that we don't usually do particularly well against. But we should have options. I mean, Vidal can play in a couple of positions as well. So look, it does give us options. I mean, what do you make of Stoke? I mean, they're a team that, if we're going to be honest about it, they tend to flatter to deceive, don't they, most years? I mean, they spend a lot of money. It doesn't feel like they go very far. They came down with us the same year that we got relegated out of the Prem. I'm not even sure if they finished above us. If they have, it's been in a season where we haven't been great. But I mean, they spend a lot of money, don't they? And don't do a lot. But I don't, and then look at their team. It doesn't hugely excite me. But obviously, there is one standout player now, isn't there, who will make his league debut, would you believe, on Saturday, you would think. A certain Ethan Galbraith.
Yeah, I think I'll be honest, Steve. I think they're two relatively well matched sides. I think we probably edge it on paper, but I don't think we're light years ahead of Stoke at the moment. Pending the Vipotnik move, so it'll be interesting to see what our business is like now for the next 2 weeks. Ethan Galbraith, I'll be honest, I was disappointed in him. I think he's kind of pushed for that move, isn't he? And I think he was a really big talent, and I think he was worshipped by our fan base. So he's one that has left a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth, if I'm honest. And so I really hope he gets kind of jeered on Saturday.
I think he will.
Oh no, I'm confident that he will. I'm very confident he will.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I think I do find Swans fans can be not the easiest to predict. I've seen some people get clapped, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure that's deserved. And I've seen some booed that, I think sometimes the people really deserve that. But I think in this case, he's just going to have to accept that he's going to take some stick, isn't he?
He's the modern day Clucas in my eyes, Steve. I got to be honest.
So Clucas, right, is a funny one for me. I thought he took a bit too much stick. I mean, he wasn't good for us. I won't deny that. But the fee and the stuff like that wasn't like down to him. He just should never have been bought.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then obviously,
it's the fact we always seem to score against us, though.
Look, of course that was annoying, but at the same time, if you're getting booed loudly and then you score and you decide to give a bit back,
yeah,
I think you're more than entitled to do that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I am with you on that. I think we're finally matched. I think Stoke and the Swans are finally matched. I would gladly take a point at this point, at this stage of the season, but we'll have to wait and see. What's your thoughts?
Definitely. I mean, I said to you before we come on air, didn't I, how bad the record is at Stoke and the perfect symmetry if we win there every 20 years. It's just the same as the 2021 was the last one. And the likelihood is our next win there, if everything goes as it has been over the last near century or so, we won't be winning there again until 2041. So based on that, you have to say you take a draw. So, look, it's never been a happy hunting ground for us, has it? We have had draws there. I mean, I think there was one under Russell Martin where we were winning late on and we ended up conceding the draw. I mean, I can remember one game where Joe Allen scored a goal for them and it was miles offside, but it stood and we lost 1-0. There's various other ones of Victor Moses and his diving. I mean, the first couple in the Prem where I think we lost to a corner and a throw in, just a horrible place for us, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a happy hunting ground, but it changes. It changes on Saturday. Positive mental attitude.
Look, I'll take a draw. I've said that. It's fine. And you said the same, haven't you? But I mean, when I look at their team,
the season then.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasonable names in their team. I mean, the standout one probably is Sorba Thomas. I think, you look at the issues we've had out wide. I mean, I would have been quite happy if we'd signed him last summer. I think he would have been a good upgrade for us. But I think he's someone that we're going to have to keep quiet. But there's a lot of experience in there. I mean, look, Aaron Cresswell is there. I mean, Ben Pearson. These are all seasoned campaigners. Obviously, Ben Wilmot is the captain now. A former South Wales Derby hero for us. Ben Gibson. I mean, there's, Stoke, as you say, we're sort of similar in terms of quality, maybe. I think it's more the fact that Stoke always seem to have more spending power, don't they? But, it doesn't really pay off, does it? It shows you it's a club that doesn't have a lot of, joined up thinking, really.
Agree. You know, and people really in the twilight of their careers. But
Yeah, big
yeah, you
money on
know,
long contracts, last big paydays, isn't it?
yeah, you know, yeah, absolutely. It's not a it's a route that I'm glad that we don't go down. Let's put it that way. But
Well, you say
yeah,
that, but Ross Stewart,
he's the exception, not the rule, though, isn't he? You know, when
oh, he
when you
is.
look at
Yeah,
our business,
you could always make the odd exception, can't you? I think
yeah, you know, and when you look at our business this summer, we have gone for a type, haven't we?
generally,
Which,
yes.
you know, so I'd much rather be us than them. I think it's more sustainable financially. I think it's more sustainable in terms of creating an identity. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But I think it's one of those games where we can't get too high if we win, and we can't get too low if we lose. You know.
No, exactly. I mean, our opening day record is generally isn't brilliant. I think I remember during, particularly during our really successful era, we did seem to regularly lose on the opening day and end up going on to have successful seasons. So, it does show you it is just one game. I mean, yeah, I think what I'm always looking for is sort of patterns of play and things to be positive about, rather than maybe even if you get a smash and grab 1-0. I'm not saying you turn that down, but I mean, sometimes you're looking for something a bit more that gives you long-term hope rather than just something in the short term. But you're going, aren't you, Rhys? I mean, I'm going. I think it's my fourth visit. First time since 2016. So it's been a while for me. And you said you've never been before, have you?
Never been to Stoke, and I can't wait.
You sure?
You have tried to put me off. I'm still looking forward to it. It's
No,
great
no,
to
I'm
have
not trying to
football.
put you off. I'm just trying to manage your expectations.
It's great to have football back, isn't it? So yeah, I'm
Look,
looking forward to it.
you're a man of leisure, so obviously for you, I mean, you've got something to do on Saturday now, haven't you?
Every day's a weekend at the moment, Steve.
Oh, what a sickening thought that is. But just one last thing before we wrap up this one. I mean, how do you see the season going? I mean, as things stand with the team we've got now, what type of area in the table do you think we'll finish?
Um, I'd like to think that with a couple of games to go, we're competitive for those playoff places. I think I wouldn't bet on us. I still think that this side is too weak and too frail and too lacking in quality in key areas to have a sustained playoff push. But I can't see a reason why we can't be competitive in competing for one of those kind of last two spots in those playoff places. So I'd like to think that we'll probably finish somewhere between kind of maybe 11th and 7th. But a lot of that will depend on A, whether Vipotnik goes, and B, if he does go, does Ida and Stewart kind of plug the goals that we will have lost from him. So a lot of it will depend on what we do on that end of the field, as well as whether we've learned some of our lessons, some of the tough lessons that we should have learned last year, of our defensive frailties.
Yeah, I think as things stand, I don't think we're going to get playoffs based on where we're at, but it's very hard to give a definitive on where you think we're at until the transfer window shuts, isn't it? So there's still plenty of time for that to change, and obviously we could have a bad 3 weeks leading up to the window, or we could have a good one with some good signings coming in. So, but I mean, as things stand, I don't think we've got enough to get in the playoffs, but I'd be surprised again.
I tend to agree. I tend to agree, and I do think we're probably 3 signings short. And although it's been nice to see us kind of do a lot of our business or a lot of our business early on in the window, it had we aren't getting some of our players now across the line. Now, I'm not saying that's anyone's fault. I'm not criticizing the club for that. But obviously, we've got Almeida who's turned us down, and it looks like that Senegalese lad is not coming to us now, doesn't it? They are people who will have given me far more hope and optimism going into Saturday if they were part of that match day squad.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? We just look a little bit short right now, but there is time for that to change. And I think the other concern I've really got is, are there going to be enough goals in the team? Because we were very over reliant on Vipotnik last year. I mean, obviously, as we've said, he could go. The other players in other positions are going to have to chip in. So whether we've got enough of that, I'm not certain at the moment. But look, I think with the amount that we've spent and probably the amount that we're going to spend, I'd expect the ownership will expect playoffs by the time the window is shut if they've done the business that they want. So there will be a little bit of pressure, I think, on the manager to make sure that he gets results, because as we've seen already, there's been such a high turnover of staff at the club that they're not going to hang about if when, say, where it gets to November, similar to last year, and where, in the bottom half, but not necessarily in 13th and 14th, but a bit lower than that. Who's to say what will happen? So, even though the manager has signed a new contract.
What's your thoughts on the Matos contract, Steve?
I didn't see the need, if I'm honest with you. I mean, 3 years to run. No manager seems to stay at the club for a huge amount of time, do they? I mean, if he stayed here 3 years to go with however many months he's already done, that would be the longest serving manager since I've started going, the longest since Frank Burrows, I think, in the early 90s. So, I mean, I just think they should have left it as it was. He had 3 years to run. I mean, it might not be the end of the world in terms of a payoff, because quite often they are only about a year or so anyway. And, and I suppose you could look at it the other way then. If he was to get poached, maybe there's a higher release clause in there now and stuff like that. So, I can see that side of it, but I wouldn't have done it. I'd have just left it as it is. But what do you think?
Yeah, same. It surprised me. It came out of left field from a personal perspective. I like Matos, and I want him to do well for however long he's the manager of the Swans. It's in everybody's interest that he succeeds. But I've still got fundamental questions over him. And so I was surprised that they took that type of action in the summer. There wasn't any pressing need for it. But with that being said, as you say, it may be a blessing, because there probably is, for all intents and purposes, he's probably been given a pay rise of a sort, and we've probably got what we wanted, which is a release clause that is larger than the one that was originally negotiated in that contract. So it may be a blessing, but I just found that caught me off guard. I found it a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, that's certainly, I would agree, really. And I do have some question marks as well. He's done well to this point, without a doubt. Can he take it on to the next level? I guess we're going to get some answers over the next few weeks and months, really. I think we look at the goals, as I mentioned just now, really, and we weren't great at creating chances last season, so that's going to have to improve. So I'm going to be interested to see as to what happens there. But to be fair, saw the highlights from the Birmingham game. There were some reasonable chances created in that game. And if you look at our XG, I think it was about 1.6, which isn't too bad. I mean, there were a lot of games last year where we weren't hitting those numbers. So if we're doing that most weeks, then, in theory, the goals will come, or we'd like to think they will. So we will see. Time will tell. But big thank you to Rhys for joining us this week. Safe journey to everybody making the trip up to Stoke. I'm sure there'll be a fair few listening to this that will be there, and yes, I'll be there as well. So feel free to say hello if you're making the trip, and hopefully when we return next week, we'll be talking positively about the Swans. But there's never any guarantees, is there? So fingers crossed. But until then, bye for now.